Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of IT FAU Student Chapter, I would like to welcome you to our today's webinar, which is going to be the first of our webinar series for Springs 2026. Today, we have the pleasure to host Dr. Paraskevas Nikolaou. He comes from the Department of Civil Engineering and Geomatics at the Cyprus University of Technology. For those who might not be familiar with his work, Dr. Nikolaou holds a PhD from the Civil Engineering Department from the University of Cyprus, while he has made some significant contributions to the field of transportation engineering. Let's say, for instance, his research has received more than 400 citations in major peer-reviewed journals, including Transportation Research and the Journal of Transport Geography. During his today's presentation, he's gonna present his work title Road Safety Policy and Highway Resilience, Data-Driven Insights and Practical Implications. From the short description we have in this webinar, Dr. Nikolaou will actually present a comprehensive data-driven analysis of road traffic accidents in Cyprus from 2015 to 2025. From our end, we believe that this topic is highly relevant to our students because, in one sense, it actually exposes our especially undergrad students to real-world challenges and data-driven approaches which come from transportational systems worldwide. Yeah, I think that was all. Once again, Dr. Nikolaou, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and taking time to share your expertise with our students. Yes, on that note, Dr. Nikolaou, please feel free to begin your presentation.
Yes, thank you, first of all, Ioannis. I would like, before sharing my presentation, to thank Professor Evangelos Kaiser for the invitation, for the honor providing me the opportunity to present to your university our work, and also to be able to present this, what we have done the last year. And also, Ioannis, thank you for all the collaboration, for making this happen, for making this presentation today. And let me share my screen in order to start. I think, let me do this too before. Let me share. Probably now you'll be able to see my screen.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, is that all right?
Yeah, we can see your presentation mode.
Okay. So thank you all. Thank you for attending this webinar series presentation. And thank you again for the invitation, having me today, presenting my work and presenting what we have done the last year. As Ioannis mentioned, my name is Paraskevas Nikolaou, or for those who know me, the short version is Paris. And I'm a lecturer, transport engineer, and also head of the transportation engineering lab in the Department of Civil Engineering and Geomatics in Cyprus University of Technology. Today's presentation actually has the title of Road Safety Policies and Highway Resilience, Data-Driven Insights and Practical Implications. And the presentation will actually present some definitions of different transport performances and disruptions. We'll also provide some definitions about the reliability, resilience, robustness, and vulnerability. Then we'll focus on the road safety in Cyprus, which will be the use case it is actually the use case in our study and for this webinar. The highway resilience and recovery of Cyprus highway network, the network vulnerability and risk analysis, and last, the policy implication and strategic directions. So first of all, we need to present the different types of transport system performances, which are actually classified into the infrastructural performances, which focuses on the characteristics of roads and highways, the technical and technological performances, which also focus on road vehicles, and the operational performance, which also focuses on characteristics of the performance of the highway, the volumes, demands, supply capacity, and the quality of service. Economic performance of transport system relates to the costs, revenues of transport operators and users and passengers. Environmental performances, which relate to the the energy, fuel consumptions, and greenhouse gases, social performances which relate to congestion, noise, and traffic incidents, and last, policy performances which relate to the institutional regulation and operation of transport systems. So as you can see from the shape in the slide, all the different types of transport system performances are connected, either as direct or indirect. So changing one transport system performance affects the other transport system performance, either directly or indirectly. So the focus today will be, since we are studying the resilience of highway and the road safety components in general and focus in Cyprus, the operational performance focuses on the capacity of the roads and highways and their segments and lanes, where then we will be able to also see how the quality of the different transport systems be affected in different disruption events, and then we'll be able to study the resilience. So the transport system performance are planned, designed, and implemented to operate under different plant and regular operating conditions and deliver transport services of the expected performances. However, there are some disruptive events which will be seen in the next slides are classified as external or internal, which appear to affect this transport performance, the planned regular performance of transport system, and thus it causes some degradation to the certain or to the full scope and scale of the transport system. So therefore, there is a need of dealing with the terms that we'll also mention in this presentation: the reliability, the resilience, the robustness, and the vulnerability of transport systems when we have these different disruptive events which affect the performance of our transport system. And these, as I mentioned, disruptions are classified as external and internal. So which are the external disruptive events and which are the internal disruptive events? Based on the literature, you can see that external events are classified as severe weather, climate change, terrorist attacks, natural disasters, pandemic diseases, or cyber attacks. And the internal events are also classified as traffic accidents. So the question here, when we have disruptive event, first of all, the disruptive event, either external or internal, I'll consider as unpredictable events. So we don't expect them to have some, especially the internal disruptive event. We don't know where it will happen and when. Also, we don't know the time, besides the time of occurrence of the disruptive event, we don't know the duration of the specific disruptive events, and also we don't know the spatial scale, which areas will be affected and which neighboring areas might be also affected. So we need to also define what is the reliability, resilience, robustness, and vulnerability of transport systems in order to further understand the resilience of highway in Cyprus. So the reliability is the probability of maintaining the planned regular functionality of performance of a given component of transport system during a specified disruptive event and during a period where this disruptive event occurs. The resilience is where the actually focuses on the circle from the start of the disruptive event to the end of the disruptive event until the time the performance of the transport system returns to the initial performance. Robustness is the level of safe functionality of performance compared to their planned and regular level, enabling continuous operating during the impact. And vulnerability is the level of deterioration functionality compared to the plan or regular functionality of performance. So in short words, if I need to see the focus areas of the different terms, reliability, the focus area of reliability is the performance under normal conditions, while robustness focus on the performance during and disruption. Vulnerability focus on the degree of damage of or the performance loss, and the resilience focus on the full disruption cycle from the start to the end of the disruption. So if I had to make a graph about the start of the original performance of the transport system until the disruption event and then to the recovery and back to the initial performance of the highway or the transport system performance, it will be seen like this graph in here, where we have the original performance, where we start at 100% if we consider that it's our transport system fully functional. Then we have the disruptive event, which, as I mentioned, will be either external or internal disruptions. And then, as you can see, you have a decline in the performance of our transport system. Then we'll continue with the continuous trend and with continuous performance until we have the initiation of recovery, and then we'll be able to fully recover to the initial performance. In the majority of the occasions when we have a disruption event, the performance does not recover at 100%, but we consider sometimes that we'll have a fully recovered system. So if I had to make a framework where I needed to see how reliability, resilience, robustness, and vulnerability are measured, we took, in order to see how we operate, we take our transport system, either it will be road, rail, air, maritime. In our case, will be the roads. Then we see the main components of this system, the infrastructure of the system, the vehicles that operate in the system, the facilities and equipment, and the staff. And then we'll focus on the different performance, as I mentioned in the first slides, which are infrastructural, operational, economic, environmental, and social performances of the transport system. Then we'll have the disruptive event, either external or internal, and some actors or stakeholders or public authorities will be, in this case, will have some indicators of measuring the different, as I mentioned, components of reliability, resilience, robustness, and vulnerability. Based on the literature, if we go back and see from, for example, in Scopus and search about road network facility, you can see from the blue line, we have many studies conducted with the topic of road network resilience. And as you can see, the majority of them are focusing on the external disruptive events, such as climate change, natural disaster, earthquake, floods, rainfall, road network, and also, as you can see, the minority of the studies are concerning traffic accidents, which are the internal disruptive events. So it seems that there is a lot of room to further investigate how traffic accidents affect the resilience of road network, and especially in highways, which are considered as critical infrastructure for connecting different areas and also for connecting commercial areas between different cities, I mean. So the case of traffic accidents will be studied and will be presented, as I mentioned, in this webinar, which is considered as an internal disruptive event. And therefore, we need to see how these occasions, how these in disruptive events, how these accidents occur in our highways, in our roads, in order to be able to investigate, first of all, to prevent these occasions, and then to study the resilience of the network and how we'll be able to recover with by minimizing the time of recovery. So in Cyprus, if we take the data from the police, in 2024, it seems that 83% of the accidents occur based on driving related accidents. So we need to study the factors that affect driving components, actually the driver. So it will be the violations that drivers do, and therefore the majority of the accidents occur based on these violations. And the minority 0.3% are due to vehicle failures. So if we study also the infrastructure of Cyprus, first of all, I need to mention Cyprus is an EU country, European Union country, located in the Eastern Mediterranean area, as you can see here from the pin. And also you can see that there is a red boundary line around this area, which I need to mention that Cyprus was occupied in 1974 from Turkey. So the area that I buffered here with the red line is the non-occupied site. So the numbers here are focusing on the non-occupied side of Cyprus. So as you can see, we have a high density of network in Cyprus, which is 547 kilometers per 100 square kilometers. And the highway density in Cyprus is 10 kilometers per 100 square kilometers. Also, we need to focus that passenger cars are registered in Cyprus are per 1,000 inhabitants are 546 in 2012 and 633 in 2022, meaning that the majority of the people in Cyprus are having a car. So if we had a picture about the modal share in Cyprus, we were able to see that the majority of the trips occurred in Cyprus are based on car. But the reason that I'm presenting this information is that besides the traffic accidents, or based on the disruptive event of traffic accidents, we need to see that when a traffic accident happens in the highway in Cyprus, we have long queues and long waits, which affects also the transport of individual transport and also the transport of different commercial different products of the transport of parcels, which is critical for the local economy. So also, the other thing that we need to study from the data collected for this presentation is from the European Transport Safety Council in the 19th Road Safety Performance Index report. It mentions that the post-crash care target of Cyprus by 2030, it will be to have a response time from ambulances to the different accident location of 9 minutes for urban areas, 15 minutes for suburban areas, and 20 minutes for rural areas. This is critical again for the estimation of recovery time and for the also resilience of the highway network in Cyprus. So therefore, we in our lab, we had some targets. We actually put some targets for our study. The first target was to study and see how we'll be able to reduce or even eliminate road traffic fatalities and severe injuries based on the data we have in Cyprus. The second target is to improve the existing emergency response strategies as you actually highlighted in the report that I presented in the previous slide. And based on the second target, we actually identified two other targets, which are the minimization of transport time of injured people to the hospital, and also the minimization of highway recovery time, which will be the resilience of highway network. The first target, which is the reduce or elimination of traffic accidents, aligns with the targets of EU, which is the Vision Zero, which says that there is a need of eliminating all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for all. The question here, is this possible to see even eliminating the traffic accidents? The answer in this comes from the European Commission, where Helsinki record zero number of road deaths over the last year of between August 24 and August 25. So can Cyprus be one case of vision zero? Yes, it can be, especially when we see that the measures taken from Helsinki, which contributed to this milestone, the fourth one is the enforcement, which focuses on the stronger traffic policing and additional speed cameras, which have supported compliance with this target. So as I mentioned, the target here is, first of all, to reduce traffic accidents or even eliminate. And if we achieve this, we'll be very happy actually to minimize or even eliminate the number. And in case that we can't eliminate accidents, not only fatal accidents, accidents in the highway, then to study the resilience of the highways in order to be able to respond at the minimum time. So as I mentioned here, the enforcement was based on the police, on the stronger traffic police implementations. So the next thing is to see what is the highway recovery time in order to be able to focus on the different time components and be able to reduce them or even minimize them. So the first time that we need to consider in the calculation of recovery time is the report time, which is considered from the time of occurrence of the accident until the time that we report the accidents to the local authorities, to the police or hospitals. The other time component is the emergency services response time, which is the time from the time of report to the time that the local authorities are responding and actually arrive to the location of the accident. And the emergency services action plan is from the time that the emergency services arrive to the location, what is their action plan to act to, first of all, to take the injured people to hospital and then to remove all the barriers from the highway in order to for the highway to recover to the fully performance that it has initially. So about the report time, based on the European Transport Safety Council, we see that there is a percentage of fault calls that actually occur, and Cyprus has the list of the percentage between the EU countries. However, Cyprus mentions that there is a pre-recorded message played before getting in contact with the unoperated in Cyprus, which increases the delays of operational for the resilience of the highways. So the next thing was to take the data from the police, from the Department of Traffic in Cyprus, and to analyze the data in the highway between the areas of Nicosia to Limassol and from Larnaca to Limassol. Why Limassol? Because Limassol has the port there. And so, as I mentioned, it's critical for us to see, in case of an accident and in case of delays, how much delays we will have and how this time increases, or maybe you will be able to decrease it for, as I mentioned, for a critical economical infrastructure. So based on that, we saw that the police average response time is in the highway was approximately 14 minutes. The same time was also for the ambulance to respond to the location of accidents in the highway. So again, I need to mention that we need to address this time and to see if there is space to even reduce it or in order to minimize the total recovery time. Another thing that we need to point is that we need to further reduce the response of ambulances, because as you know, in order to address injured people, we need to provide the minimum time from the point of the location of accident back to hospitals. The other information that we recorded in order to see and measure the resilience of Cyprus highway was also the traffic. Unfortunately, there we don't have much information for Cyprus. There are some induction loops which are not functional anymore. And so it took some data from 2014, specifically the average daily traffic towards Limassol, from Nicosia to Limassol and Larnaca to Limassol, the other two major cities, which appear that we have approximately 40,000 passenger car units. So the next thing was to see what is the current emergency action plan for in case that we have an accident in the highway. So in case of an accident, the involved authorities is the police, the ambulance, the fire service, the public works department, and some tow trucks. For some occasions, we have a major accident where we need to remove the crashed vehicles. The response plan is that we need to, based on the action plan of the local authorities, is that first of all, they need to transport the injured people, and then for the removal of barriers, they need first to investigate the crash and then to remove the accidents, which increases the time of resilience and for recovery of the highway. So what data can be used in order to study the resilience and the traffic accidents in Cyprus? The one source of data is social media. The other is community-based traffic and navigation apps like Waze and police records. Unfortunately, I need to mention that some analyses that we conducted about the resilience in Cyprus were based only on social media because the other two sources of data were not available at that time. So, however, there are some concerns when using social media data, which are issues of accurate location of accident, because as you know, now Facebook does not easily provide this information. So to estimate the location of the accident based on some post has some thresholds. There are other also issues about the inaccurate information, for example, fake posts, which might mislead the analysis of accidents. About the community-based traffic and navigation app data, as I mentioned, Waze data, there are some also concerns, which one of them is the time of actual report to time of report on navigation app. It means that when a user of the navigation app makes the report in the app, it doesn't mean that it matches to the initial and accurate report of the accident. So have a gap of this report time. The other thing is that we have issues of inaccurate information. For example, a user make a fake report and then will not be able to actually validate the specific report and the specific location of the accident. However, I need to mention that there are also the police reports, which are considered as trustworthy and accurate reports. And the last couple months, we were able to obtain this data just to analyze the traffic accidents and the reasons and the factors that affect the traffic accidents in Cyprus, but we didn't have the time to study the resilience based on this data. But first of all, I will present the fatalities and the accidents in Cyprus about having the information from the police and the factors that affect these accidents. As you can see from the graph, the total number of fatalities decreases from the 2022 over the years. However, from 2016 to 2021, we had an increase of road fatalities, and in 2024 compared to 2023. In 2025, we have a decrease. However, there is a point here that we don't have the whole year of 2025. We have until July of 2025. So the decrease here might be due to the lack of information of the entire year. Then we move to analyzing the factors that affect road fatalities. And as you can see from the graph, we used the accidents where they had some, as a factor of occurring an accident speed, a violation of the driver, which was the speed, which we saw that we had a decrease of the accidents with speed. However, we saw that for the accidents caused by speed, 33% of them were actually had a result fatalities. Additionally, 32% of speeding related accidents led to serious injuries, which highlights the importance of the violation speed, which means that even that accidents with speed decrease, if we have accidents with speed, the 1/3 of them will actually will conclude to a fatality. The other factor that is related to road accidents is the substance-related accidents with the use of alcohol and drugs. However, as you can see again, the number of accidents with the use of alcohol and drug decreases. However, 9% of accidents occurred by a substance use will actually conclude to fatalities. Again, so it means that we need to further investigate the measures that we need to implement for speed and for substance-related accidents in order to reduce the number of accidents that occur for these factors. The next thing was to see in 2025 which are the major reasons, the major violations occurred, and the major violations that concluded to accidents compared to 2024. So the majority of them, the five major reasons of violations were illegal lane changing, careless driving, driver distraction, which is the use of mobile, reversing maneuver, traffic signal violations, road departures deviation from the roadway. So again, we need to focus on this violation in order to see how we'll be able to reduce this violation and how we'll be able to reduce them also in the infrastructure of highway. So the next thing was to implement an ordinary logistic regression model, which was able to provide us which violation or which other factors are affecting the severity of the accidents. So we'll be able to see which violation are creating severe or fatal accidents. So we'll be able to see the location of these accidents and see the violation, how we can prevent them, especially in the highway, and how by these locations we'll be able to reduce the response time and the recovery time. So as you can see, the external disruptive events like weather, infrastructure, etc., was not able to affect the severity of the accidents. However, speed was appeared to have, as I mentioned, high relation with the severity of the accident. And based on that, we saw that when we have accidents, especially in roads of 50 kilometers per hour, there is an increase of percentage of severity of accidents compared to the other roads. So one measure that can be done and can be implemented here, can be suggested to the local authorities, is to actually transform the areas of 50 kilometers per hour to areas of 30 kilometers per hour, which is a measure that is implemented in Europe. The other thing is that, as I mentioned, the high-risk human behavior components that affect accident severity, as I mentioned, is speed, also pedestrian involvement and driving under the influence. So the policy enforcement that actually the police created and the police provided for reducing violations of speed or driving with distractions was the installment of some permanent cameras or the use of mobile cameras, which the police thought that this measure will be able to reduce violations of speed and violations of driver distraction, as I mentioned. So the question here was to what extent this measure have contributed to reducing the accident frequency and severity. Many criticism was occurred from the public for this measure, from the installment of cameras, from the permanent cameras, and for the use of mobile cameras, where it was, as I mentioned again, the measure that Helsinki used in order to have the zero vision target. However, as I say, that there was a lot of public criticism about this measure, and especially they mentioned about the transparency and the cost of fines. Many people believe that the contractor, because we have a contractor operating the cameras, that is paid per violation, thus there is an individual purpose behind this measure. Also, people believe that this measure is not efficient and that this measure did not reduce the severe accidents. So in order to answer this question, we studied the locations where the cameras were installed, which is the majority of them is on the signalized intersections, and therefore some other road segments. Therefore, we were able to study a 50-meter zone behind the intersections, either where the cameras were installed and where the cameras did not installed. And based on that, we were able to see in the different four cities, Larnaca, Nicosia, and Paphos, and Limassol, how these affected the number of accidents. However, I need to mention that in Nicosia, they installed in pilot scale the cameras in 2021, and in 2022, they officially operate this measure with a minor number of installed cameras. However, they increased the number of cameras over the years. And in 2023, they installed cameras in Limassol and started to operate them. And also in Larnaca and Paphos, it was in 2024. As you can see, for Nicosia in 2021, we have a reduced number of accidents in these locations where the cameras were installed compared to the previous year. And in 2022, we have a slight increase of one accident, actually, where in the rest of the years, the other years actually remain the same. For the case of Limassol, as you can see, in 2023, we have a reduced number of accidents compared to the previous year, and then remain the same. The same for the Larnaca, where in 2024, we have a reduced number of accidents, and in the case of Paphos, we have zero number of accidents, which actually provided a conclusion that the cameras were not just installed just to take fines to the people, but appeared to that they actually made some work on the reduction of accidents. So the question here is that since the violations that lead in the highway, which are in distracted driving, as I mentioned, the use of mobile and speed, how can measures of mobile cameras can be effectively actually prevent these violations and thus the accidents? And also, therefore, we need to identify the locations of vulnerable areas where we have accidents in order to install the cameras, either permanent cameras or mobile cameras, and thus reduce the number of violations of speed and distracted driving, which will actually help to address these vulnerable areas and where accidents occur, and therefore avoid long queues, delays, and therefore have a resilience in the highway, which would be able to have a minimum time of recovery. So as I mentioned, because at that time that we proceeded with the analysis of vulnerability in our highway network, we didn't have any other information besides of the social media. So what we did, where actually there is a group in Facebook where people report accidents. There are 100,000 group members, which, as I mentioned, reports frequently daily post of accidents. And therefore, we were able to collect this data from 2024 to 2025 for 1 year. And therefore, we took the post and were able to collect many posts of the same occasion and uh, actually transfer and relate this information as the location of the accident. So it took these locations and we are able to study the vulnerable location of accidents. However, in order to relate the accident's location, we took some geometric characteristics of highway, specifically the longitudinal slope based on different elevations of the highway, the curve radius of the different segments of the road of the highway segment of the highway network, and also the distance from exit and entrance points to the highway, the rampways. So the other information that we collected was the location of different emergency services, which are fire stations, police stations, and hospitals. The concept and the method that was developed here was based on the collected information. We are able to actually create a database of geometric characteristics of the highway, and then we are able to make a risk analysis using binary logistic regression. One with the segments of having an accident and zero with the segment of the highway network without an accident. And then we are able to estimate based on these geometric parameters the risk of each segment for occurring an accident. Also, we were able to estimate the response time. We actually took the different segments of the highway and measure based on shortest path and free flow conditions the time that needs from all the emergency authorities to arrive to the location of the accident. So then we studied two scenarios, the scenario of having a minor incident and the scenario of having a major incident, a major accident, a minor accident. And based on the risk analysis and the recovery time on the two different scenarios, we are able to measure the network vulnerability score for each road, for each highway network segment. So for the risk analysis, as I mentioned, we used binary logistic regression. And based on the analysis, we found that the only statistically significant component, geometric component of the highway was the distance to the nearest entrance to the highway, which actually created a risk index, as you can see from the map, where the red areas are the segments of the highway that are considered as critical based on the geometric, as I mentioned, parameters. Then we studied the recovery timeline of incident, where actually we measure from the time that we have a full performance of the highway to the time of incident at T0. Then from the time where we report the accident we report the accident to the local authorities, to the time where the emergency authorities arrive to the location of the accident, then the time where we have a clearance of the highway, we remove the barriers of meaning the crushed vehicles, and then to the full performance of the highway. So The report time, which is the first time that we needed to measure for the recovery time, is that we saw the ways of informing an accident to the emergency authorities, which are based on passing by vehicles or from constant patrols of police in the highway, or by the new technology of cars, where when they have a crash, there is immediate SOS message to the authorities, all by self-report. Based on the literature, therefore, and these sources of information of reporting the accident, we assume the report time in the recovery time estimation to be a constant time of 5 minutes. Then the next time that we needed to calculate was the response time, where, as I mentioned, were considered from the location of the emergency authorities. We measure what is the time of arrival from the fire station, from the police station, and from the ambulance to the location of accident. And here we consider that the response time is the maximum time of the 3 times of response between the response of police, the response of ambulance, and the response of fire station. So based on that, as you can see from the map, we were able to estimate the locations where we had the increased time of response from the 3 different emergency authorities. And therefore, we also consider free flow condition, which is a limitation in our study. If we had a real-time traffic condition, we'll be able to study and have an accurate response time here. For the next time that we needed to estimate for the recovery time is the clearance time. As I mentioned, we consider 2 types of incidents: a minor incident and a major incident. A minor incident is considered as a minor crash between 2 vehicles. However, a major accident is considered, for example, a crash with a truck. And specifically in Cyprus in 2025, had, for example, a crash with a truck in the highway, which actually led to a delay of 6 hours in the highway. So based on the literature, we saw that the minor accident occasion that the clearance time is 26 minutes, and for the major accident is 3.9 hours. So the next and last time component that we needed to calculate for the recovery time was the delay time, which actually considers the capacity of the highway from the accidents to the clearance stage to the normal conditions, where actually consider that 0 time is the time where the accident occurs. So the vehicles arrive to the location of the accident continues to have the same rate as before the accident, and then the people after a while are informed that there is an accident, or the police take measures to prevent any other vehicles to come to the segment of the highway that we have the accident. So this rate decreases, and until we find the time that we have a full clearance and the capacity returns to the full performance of the highway. So based on community-based traffic and navigation app data report, which we had, again, the last couple of months, we are able to see if we have a minor accident in the highway, what is the time of delay that we have. So we took an incident based on the navigation app, the Waze, and we saw for this occasion, for this accident, which was reported at 3:08, we had an increase of traffic in this road segment, in this highway segment, which actually estimated to last approximately 40 minutes. So it seems that the recovery time with a minor accident for the occasion at this time was approximately 40 minutes, which actually validated our recovery time estimation in our methodology. So the recovery time for estimating the recovery time, we, as I mentioned, we took two scenarios, the minor scenario and the major scenario. We took the different time components and we were able to measure it and to actually present it as you can see here. The segments of the highway that have increased time of recovery time are appeared with the red color. This is for the minor incident, and the right one is for the major incident. So we took the risk analysis for based on the geometric parameters of the highway and also the recovery time, and therefore we were able to measure the vulnerability of the highway network by using a grid search optimization, which actually provided us the vulnerable areas of the highway network, which are presented with the red color. Relevant presentation for this research are from the TRP and from the ICTR conference. So I'm moving forward because I know that we passed the time. So the conclusions, as I mentioned, we need to study the accident severity, and the case study in our study was Cyprus. We need to identify high-risk human behavior violations, which were speed, driving under the influence, distracted driving. We saw that the majority of the violations, the majority of the accidents had as a violation speed. We have a high increase of severity in that occasion. Highway resilience is strongly influenced by the emergency response time, the clearance duration, the delayed time. Minor incidents occur approximately 40 minutes, which quite high time for minor incidents. And based on this approach, we were able to find and identify vulnerable areas of the highway. So based on this analysis, we are able to set some targets of, first of all, reducing the accidents in the highway by implementing some policy enforcements and some cameras installations or some mobile cameras for reducing speeding and reducing other violations. And also we need to minimize the recovery time by addressing the different time components of the recovery time estimation. I would like to thank you for the presentation and for keeping along the presentation, and I'm open to any questions. I also have my QR in case someone wants to know some further information about the study and in general about what we have presented today. Thank you again, Professor Evangelos Kaiser and Ioannis, for the opportunity to present today and for all the collaboration.
Dr. Nikolaou, thank you so much for your presentation. We really appreciate you taking time to share your insights with us. Yes, as you said at this point, I would like also to invite our students, if they have any question, to please feel free, unmute yourselves and ask Dr. Nikolaou any questions you may have. Dr. Nikolaou, if there are no questions from our students, I would like to start with some questions that Mr. Giri sent it to me. Mr. Giri is an adjunct professor in FAU, while he has almost more than 30 or 40 years of experience in traffic analysis in Florida. So one question he had was that were there any minimum number of reported incidents via Facebook or Waze that was considered as a minimum requirement before you treated them as a legitimate incident?
To be honest, because there was a limited number of reporting accidents in the Facebook, we had only 30 number of incidents, which actually were validated by having duplicate reports of the same occasion by different users in order to validate and take these incidents under consideration. If we had only one incident, we didn't consider it because we thought it might be a false post. So unfortunately, yes, we had a minimum number, but now what do we have? We have approximately more than 1,000 occasions from 10 years records from the police. So the target now is to analyze the data from the police.
Okay. Also, another question I would like to share with you from Mr. Giri is that was there any emergency preemption through traffic signals?
Um, to be honest, I'm not sure. Do not remember. To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't remember because I tried to remember the data from the police. To be honest, I'm not sure. I don't remember about that. But I can see and let you know.
Okay, thank you so much. I guess this question was more because of the differences between, let's say, Cyprus and Florida. Also, in
Mhm.
that context, I might have one question, not question, maybe clarification for our students who were born in the United States, and especially in places like Boca Raton. Uh, I think in one of your first slides, you mentioned that due to mechanical failures or malfunctions,
Mhm.
we have many accidents. What I wanted to mention is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in countries like Cyprus or Greece, the average age of commercial vehicles fleet is way older compared to other nations like other countries like I don't know England or Germany. And because I was curious, I just Googled that and I found out that let me see, where is this? Yeah, that in countries like Greece or Cyprus, the average age of cars is more than 14 years, while in countries like Germany, the average age of cars is like less than 8 years. I guess
To be
that's
honest, yes. To be
yes,
honest, I checked in the statistics service in Cyprus. I'm not sure that they provide this information. I don't know if they have this information about the age of vehicles. But even 14 years old vehicles are not considered as old vehicles. Especially now, there are the couple 2 years in Cyprus. There are some plans of for the people to actually dump their old vehicles and buy some hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles. So there was also a schedule from the government to provide some money to the people that are interested to buy new vehicles about hybrid or electric vehicles, which many people find interested and actually proceeded with the plan. So I don't think, and as I mentioned in the presentation, there is a minority of the percentage of having incidents with malfunction from the vehicles. The majority is based on violations from the drivers, not from malfunctions. Yes,
yes, yeah,
as I
that's
can
true. That's a
see, the
minor
vehicle
parameter.
failures are is 0.3% of the total number of vehicles, so it's minor.
Yes, that's correct. Also, I think one more question that Mr. Giri shared with me was that let me find it. If there were any efforts to get citizens to understand how those cameras work and also the significance they might have for road safety.
Very interesting, this one, because even from the part of police, they didn't actually communicate to the people that these measures actually are working. So, to be honest, I had a meeting with the police, with the traffic department of police before approximately 2 to 3 weeks, where I was able to provide them this information and tell them, okay, you have many criticism from the public about this specific measure, but you are not mentioning anything. Why? And I mean, and then I presented them that this enforcement indeed works to reduce traffic accidents. However, as you all know, that installing cameras in signalized intersections are already considered as control intersections, so you don't expect to have many accidents in those areas. However, for the case of violations, it even when they install the cameras, it reduces the accidents there.
Just to clarify something regarding these cameras, because this happened recently in Greece as well, in Athens. They installed those cameras which they have this AI software, which can detect the tag number of the vehicle and then can directly send them the ticket for any violation. Are you talking about these kind of cameras?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. However, there is a limitation. It only records violation of passing signalized lights, and also for speeding. It does not recognize, for example, if you don't have your belt or if you are using your mobile. But they said that they will be having some mobile cameras, which are some cars which have installed the cameras in the back of the car. So these cars will be in the highways, also recording violations of using mobile or you don't having your belt.
Can I ask something else also about this? I think at least from Greek perspective, when I'm talking about Greece, I'm talking about, let's say, Athens, where they actually implemented this. They were saying there might be some complexity regarding the ethics and their violation if they record violations of people having their mobile phone or so not wearing their belt properly, because these cameras are not supposed to have access to this data. Is this also a concern, or is there any
It's
regulation?
a it's a long discussion. I don't know if it's resolved in Cyprus or not, but they mentioned that there is a measure that will be proceeded. However, it's a critical discussion here because we have the one side the ethics, and the other side we have data that we have many fatalities about these violations. So, in my opinion, in my opinion, we need to see a clear picture and to focus on the violation, which we have fatalities based on these violations and not the ethics of these violations. But it's a personal opinion.
Yes, yes, that's true. Okay, I don't want to waste your time with any more of my
No, no,
questions.
it's okay.
I want to
It's
ask
my
one more
pleasure.
time if there are any other questions from our audience. If you guys have, yes, please feel free to unmute yourselves. Okay,
I
I
have
think.
I have a
Yes, yes, please.
question. So, I'm new to Florida, so I don't know if this is the right question to ask for. I have this question in my mind. So, most of the data that they share to public is very rare, I think, because the FDOT has its private data about the vehicles. So, do you think the API could work in this to share the data between the public so that they could know that there is a crash or something like that that would be come under part of the safety?
However, which data are you mentioning? About the social media data, about the police data?
Uh, Maybe regarding the traffic data or something like that. I'm not particular about the data. I'm just telling about the data that is publicly shared that can be done by API. So, how accurate do you think that API could share the data? Is what I'm asking.
It's regarding who is providing the API for the data. So if the question is how we trust the data provided from the API, it regarding who provides this API with this data. It's the public authority, or it's I don't know, it's an individual, it's a company, it's an insurance company. It's all regarding.
Oh, so you're saying that though there's a many stakeholders, they need to access the data, is what you're telling?
uh, again, it depends. So, for example, if there let's say if the insurance companies are saying that they need to this data and they actually use some APIs from the police that the police actually created to take the data, it depends which actually information is provided through this data and what is the purpose of taking this data. For example, in our cases, we have an NDA with the police where we can able to have this data and analyze this data, but there is some personal information about this data, not to actually identify the person behind the accident, but it's easily for us to correlate occasions and find the persons behind the data because we are a close community in Cyprus. It's approximately 1 million people. So if we know the location, if we know the status, if we know many information, then we'll be able to locate and correlate this information with the people. So it depends who takes this data, who wants this data, for which person, which purpose, etc. However, it's critical to provide information of traffic accidents and for the people to be able, for not the people, the researchers mainly, or the universities to analyze this data and provide sufficient inputs to the public authorities. For example, if you go to San Francisco Open Portal, you can download the traffic data, and I mean traffic accidents. So it's critical to be provided. However, there should be, let's say, modified in a way that it cannot identify the people behind the accidents. I don't know if I answered your question or.
That was a good insight, and thank you for your presentation. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think if we don't have any more questions, Dr. Nikolaou, I would like to thank you once again for accepting our invitation and taking time to present and share with us your insights. Thank you so much. As I said, we recorded this webinar, so once we upload it on our YouTube channel, I'm gonna share it with you. Okay.
Thank you again, and thank you for the invitation and for all the collaboration again.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.